You ever notice how intense sports conversations can get? Someone walks into the room and says, "Did you see that game last night?" And the energy immediately shifts. Voices get louder, hands start moving. There's analysis, outrage, celebration, heartbreak. And then there's you. You nod. Maybe you say, "Nah, I didn't catch it." And that's it. No disappointment, no regret, no curiosity to check the highlights later. Just neutrality. And if you've ever felt slightly out of place because of that, like you missed some universal human download about competition and team loyalty, today we're opening that vault. Because not caring much about sports isn't random. It's psychological. Welcome to the Psychology Vault. Here's the part nobody really says out loud. For a lot of people, sports aren't just games. They're identity amplifiers. When someone says "we won," even though they never stepped on the field, their brain is doing something fascinating. It's merging their self-concept with a collective outcome. Neuroscientists call this identity fusion. The boundaries between me and group temporarily blur. But if you don't care much about sports, your brain may resist that fusion. You're less likely to attach your personal identity to something you don't directly influence. That doesn't make you detached. It makes you selective. There's research showing that people vary in how strongly they experience social identification. Some individuals feel a powerful emotional charge when aligning with a group. Others maintain a firmer psychological boundary between themselves and collective symbols. If you're in that second category, your mind prefers ownership over observation. You'd rather win your own game than celebrate someone else's. Now here's where it gets interesting. For many sports fans, watching a close match activates the brain's reward circuitry. Anticipation builds. Uncertainty spikes. When the outcome swings in their favor, dopamine surges. It's not just entertainment, it's a controlled emotional roller coaster. But if you don't care much about sports, your reward system simply doesn't respond strongly to vicarious competition. Your brain might crave mastery, not spectatorship. In psychology, there's a distinction between direct agency and indirect engagement. Direct agency means your effort changes the outcome. Indirect engagement means you're emotionally invested in something outside your control. Sports fandom lives heavily in indirect engagement. People who feel indifferent often lean toward environments where effort and outcome are tightly linked. If you're going to invest emotion, you want skin in the game. That preference can show up in subtle ways. You might enjoy learning a skill more than watching someone else demonstrate it. You might prefer building something over commenting on it. You might feel restless sitting through a 3-hour event where your input changes nothing. It's not boredom, it's psychological orientation. But there's another layer. Humans evolved in tribes. Group cohesion meant survival. Shared rituals strengthened bonds. Modern sports act as symbolic tribes. Colors, chants, rivalries, they all simulate belonging. If sports don't pull you in, it may be because your sense of belonging isn't easily triggered by symbolic markers. You don't automatically feel connected just because others are wearing the same logo. Your brain may prioritize depth over scale. Instead of bonding through mass identity, you bond through conversation, shared values, or shared experiences that feel personal and reciprocal. There's also personality involved. People who score higher in autonomy and independent self-construal often define themselves by internal standards rather than group affiliation. They're less motivated by us versus them narratives. Competition between external teams doesn't ignite the same fire because their competitive drive, if they have one, is inward. They compete with who they were yesterday. And here's something most people won't admit. For some, not caring about sports is a quiet resistance to emotional outsourcing. Think about it. When your mood rises and falls based on a scoreboard you didn't influence, you're temporarily handing your emotional state to strangers. If that feels uncomfortable to you, it might be because you have a strong internal locus of control. You prefer your emotions to reflect your actions, not someone else's performance. That's not superiority. It's wiring. But we need to talk about the shadow side. Because sometimes indifference isn't just preference, sometimes it's avoidance. If you grew up feeling excluded from competitive environments, or you associate sports culture with pressure, embarrassment, or social hierarchy, your brain may have learned to detach as self-protection. The mind is efficient. If something consistently made you feel small or alien, it tags it as irrelevant to conserve emotional energy. So the question becomes, do you not care because it genuinely doesn't resonate? Or because somewhere along the line you decided it wasn't a world you wanted to step into? There's no judgment in that question, only clarity. Now here's the paradox. People who don't care about sports are often deeply passionate about other things. They'll stay up late dissecting a business idea. They'll lose hours inside a creative project. They'll dive into philosophy, music, technology, psychology. Their brains aren't low energy. They're selectively activated. In motivational psychology, there's a concept called intrinsic motivation. It refers to activities that feel rewarding because they align with your internal drives, curiosity, mastery, purpose. If sports don't align with those drives, your nervous system simply doesn't light up. And that's okay, because meaning isn't universal. It's constructed. For one person, meaning is found in a championship run that unites a city. For another, it's found in mastering a craft, strengthening a relationship, or solving a complex problem. Different paths, same human need. But here's something subtle that creates tension between sports lovers and non-sports people. Sports provide a shared language. Highlights, rivalries, statistics, they're social currency. If you're not fluent in that language, you might feel slightly disconnected in certain environments. Not because you lack depth, but because you're speaking a different dialect of passion. And sometimes that makes people assume you're less engaged with life. You're not. You're just investing your emotional bandwidth elsewhere. In fact, individuals who don't gravitate towards spectator culture often report feeling more present in their personal goals. They're less likely to schedule their time around external events and more likely to design it around internal priorities. They don't experience victory through association. They experience it through participation. So if you've ever felt like the odd one out because you genuinely couldn't care less about the playoffs, the draft, the rankings, understand this. Your brain isn't missing a chip. It's calibrated differently. You may value autonomy over affiliation, agency over attachment, creation over observation, and that difference shapes how you experience excitement, belonging, and meaning. The real question isn't, why don't I care? It's, where does my care naturally flow? Because everyone's wired to care deeply about something. And when you identify that thing, the activity that makes time disappear, the pursuit that feels personal and earned, you realize you were never disengaged. You were just playing a different game. And in this vault, we don't judge wiring. We decode it. If this made you rethink something about yourself, subscribe to the Psychology Vault. I'll see you in the next one.